Hello, everybody. It's time for another update video with what's gone on this week. The good news is the camera quality is improving. We're not there yet. We've now in focus and we've punched in a lot on a low resolution camera, but hey, it's progress. Perfect for what we're going to talk about today. Got three big updates: one to the SDK, one to Spagrios, one to Echoa, and we're going to start with the big one, which is Spagrios. I'm here on the marketing page, but what you'll actually see here when you plug in Spagrios and update is the new ability to define all of the effects on each row, the signal chain order of those effects, if you, for some reason, want it to go bottom up, for example. And you can also affect all the parameters for each effect that aren't available directly on the panel and won't be, because the vision of Spagrios is that it's a tight, focused, punch-in, punch-out effect, triple effect. But that doesn't mean we can't do things like change how we want these things to run. I'm already kind of feeling a little bit that, like, for example, the beat repeat. I love the beat repeat. I love the pitch down effect. I find myself using it a lot. But it's really cool to be able to punch it in reverse. So I've been thinking about potentially adding an alternate mode where you can only add one effect per channel, and then you have a button that you can like momentarily configure to do this. Interested if you're interested in that at all. But I would definitely recommend digging in and configuring these effects to your taste. For example, like the dry duck on space, instead of just when it's like this in default, you're just adding reverb to your top signal. When you turn up the dry duck, as you turn the wet dry knob, it'll actually duck the source signal, so you can wash out your signal, which is an effect that has come highly requested. This also means I can add, and you can also remove effects. Like you can statically have like one effect on a row, or you can add even more. You'll see here certain effects you can only add once per rack because they define a region of RAM. And I started having a complicated situation with an arena for defining the RAM, and I was like, you know what, this isn't worth my time. So you only get one beat repeater or reverse slower, etc. Right? So anyway, please dive in, check this out. This is a big kind of jump in capability for Spagrios that is warranting a 2.0 release. For Echoa, I fixed the input clock experience, and I also actually, if you go to, I've updated the manuals now to save myself some time. Specifically, what the manuals do now is they dump all of the information just like you would find it in the firmware itself when you plug it in. So this is a nice experience because, one, it allows me to maintain things in one place, but two, as you're working with the module, you can see all of this information live and have this kind of help as you have the module plugged in. And then on the manual pages itself, you'll be able to see all of this. This is great. There's things like, for example, on the delay time, if I want to see the settings that are related, I'm able to jump here. I can see the clock format for the input. I can see the time curve to make it linear, exponential. And if I click these, they jump to the relevant parameter on the correct settings page. So just a nice little experience there. And again, this works live with the module plugged in. Something to highlight, clock format. This has been overhauled. I've made this a lot clearer and simpler. It supported some use cases that didn't matter before, and I've kind of removed those. But basically, for the clock input on a clock CV destination on one of your input jacks, you can have it treated like a tap input. So if I have like an analog clock running that at 1 beat per quarter note, say, I can patch that in, and then that'll clock sync to 1 beat per quarter note in like a forced sync. Alternatively, if I pass it a 24 ppqn clock input, that'll cause the actual knobs to snap to regions that are clock divisions of the detected BPM. This is really cool because you can set like a triplet clock division for one and like a straight clock division for another, for example. I really like that method of timing. You'll see the knob swap. I've spent some time really getting that experience pretty slick, and I'll have a demo for that coming soon. But I didn't want to set up the whole second camera and get the audio thing out. You know, we're still figuring out this whole broadcast thing. I'm becoming a streamer. Clearly, this is the only way to be successful in this life. Okay. All of this naturally raises a question. how are all of this information, the about page, right? You'll see there's even actually like a additional manual information on the guide page. The buttons have control information. This leads us nicely into the SDK release that has come out. There is now interactive manual support baked into the SDK. So basically, what you do is on things like buttons, on things like pages, you stick a .help and a .c also. You pass this the objects that define different pots and parameters, which is how you get these handy little button jumps here. But the fundamental idea here is by doing this, you're able to bake your manual into your firmware in a way that is visible when you connect any module to the programmer. So this isn't just restricted to my first class hermetic modular modules that I build. You are able to configure your SDK built modules to support exactly the same experience when someone goes to the programmer and clicks connect. So check out the docs here. There is also a new, we'll go to the actual docs page. There's a new docs page for the manual hooks that explains exactly what I'm talking about here and how to do it. You'll see, there's a .help. I recommend putting these in like a separate file and kind of defining them in Markdown. You can do Markdown, so that's kind of nice. And you can put it on all this stuff. You can define jacks and give them information and give them a type because, the switchable jacks have different CB ranges and CB in or out, etc. That's what's going on there. So would recommend that. And actually we can also quickly see, I'll show you this has been implemented in the template as well. If we go to the template and we go to source and we go to manual, you will see here I have basically grabbed all of the definitions of all the objects I want to give manual content to. You don't have to do it this way. As you can see, I put here for simplicity. And the preamble is the thing that shows up. Shows up here. This is the preamble. And so you can define what that says for an end user. You can also define this little tagline up here. Tagline, preamble, and then you can write manual sections that appear there, and then you can also attach these to pots, right? Or CV, that's the idea. So I'm trying to solve this problem here of like in these community firmware experiences, a lot of people have shared out binaries. They don't want to maintain a manual. If someone writes a good firmware and then they disappear from the world, they might never have a manual go out. I want you to be able to bake it in, and then if someone has the firmware, they're running it, they have a manual. It's cool. So that's PR21 that shipped a couple of days ago for SDK v 0.1.0. Next up, stupid mistake. There is a calibration file in the STM32 that calibrates the ADCs, thank you, Craig. Craig was like, hey, I'm having trouble tracking volt per octave. And then if I add this offset, it's like perfect. And then I was looking at my code and I was like, yes, I immediately define the voltage offset from STM32 and then I hard code it to 3.3, which was very dumb. So I just removed that and that fixed a calibration thing. So now CV inputs are more accurate on everything. Sorry that made it like 3 weeks into launch. But here we are, we're fixed now. And finally, I updated and added a new feature called the clipping light. So if you clip the digital codec, right, you get nasty digital clipping, as is the case with every digital module. And I changed this to be a first-class experience because I was updating it on Echoa, changing how it worked, and I needed it updated in Spagrios, and I'm like, this is an indication that this should be in the SDK itself. So kind of what you do is you declare that I want a clip indicator. It kind of follows the easy experience of everything in the SDK. You say how long you want it to hold. That's like how sticky it is. So if you set this really low, it'll just flash only when it's clipping. You can have it hold. You can define where you want it to flash. So, buttons are, there's the 2 lights above the buttons. And then if you define it to a pot, it defines the pip below the pot. So that is nice. It's pretty, you can see there's a whole stride for how it samples the audio stream. So it's not like processing every sample, because you don't need that to define clipping. But you can also change some deeper stuff in there that I left off the notes for if you want to change how sensitive it is to clipping and the threshold for the clipping and this sort of thing. I set the default threshold to 98% of the codec, and then a 50 millisecond minimum, which I kind of like. And I've updated Echoa on that. If you were interested, before, Echoa and Spagrios were at 90% and 500 milliseconds, which is why they felt like they were clipping all the freaking time when they weren't. They actually had a whole 10% of gain on the codec, which is like a decibel or something. And so now they feel less sensitive. So that's kind of a look and feel sort of experience thing. That's what we shipped this week. Thank you for following along. I hope that was a more pleasant experience with an in-focus camera. See, I'm getting better. I'm learning. I'm improving. Soon you'll find me streaming League of Legends or something, and that's where I'll make the big bucks. Take it easy.